Ready? Are you guys ready to go? I will count us down to about 5, and then I'll flip over. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Yeah, it looks like it.
Hey everybody, we are live with another squad chat. Today we have Norby, which is one of our producers and QA lead, and as well as Norby. Everybody, we are live with another squad chat.
Hello.
Yeah, okay, that's a good idea, man. That's a good idea.
We have them today to talk a little bit about their roles on squad, what they've been doing for us, and obviously they're both from the QA department, so we're going to give a little bit of insight into that. I'd like to start off,
boys.
like to start off just by throwing it off to Norby, so you can kind of tell us about what you do and your history with squad.
BDM is a good idea too.
Yeah, okay. So I'm actually just gonna see where the calmest room here is right now. So what you see here is the new office. Actually,
I don't mind driving.
as some of you might know, we're based in Vancouver or Vancouver area, and so far we have all been working out of temporary office location here, and now we're finally getting something a little bit more permanent. So that's where I am right now, and it's not just finished, so that's why I'm on the phone. But I found a nice room here, so hopefully audio should be okay here. And yeah, me and Squad, I'm not coming from the video game industry. I was in the army, and then I studied electrical engineering, and I was in the automotive industry. And in 2015, Will and the original guys contacted me when Squad got started and wanted me to help out with testing. And that's how I got into the team. And yeah, in the beginning, it was, of course, just part-time next to day job. I'm doing a little bit here and there after work. And then at some point, it just became so much of a business and so professional that I decided it would be a good time to, for a change. And I would work full-time for off-road. And that's when I moved to Vancouver and took over many other responsibilities. So I got the QA team organized, but also relatively quickly handed that over to Karm, who is the team lead now. And I'm doing mostly producer tasks, but I'm also the one who sets up the vehicle physics. I'm doing quite a bit of programming work, a lot more than I would like to in regards to physics. And yeah, that's mostly what I do on the team right now.
Yeah, you've certainly been very deeply involved in the guts of the engine recently, and valuable to the team. So that is, a really good and light summation of what you do. You're a very integral part of Squad. And then, we have Nordic over here, who's also an integral part of Squad in another way, often for blame goating, but we'll let him cover that.
Yeah, I'm Nordic, Swedish, a 26-year-old from Sweden, and I started playing Squad on 15th of December, aka in 2015, aka Steam release. Got to know Squad through a colleague who played PR and been stuck since then. About 2 months into Squad, I rage quit Dota and started playing only Squad because Dota is a shit game. And about in October 2016, I joined the QA team and have been on since then, which was about when we were just finishing up Alpha 8, like the 3 last weeks or something on that Alpha 8, I think. I celebrated my first only 2-week vacation I've had since I got a civilian job after leaving the army with doing nothing but testing the Alpha 8. So that was pretty nice.
No, but you mentioned you had kind of come up to the office, and you're at the new office now, where we're obviously kind of growing into that. I'm just kind of curious, how have you noticed kind of Squad or your efforts on it change as you've kind of come into the office? Does that impact your day-to-day at all?
Oh yeah, it's a massive difference. The communication in an office is just very, very different. And it also changed my work schedule. It was very flexible before I moved into the office. Just work when I had time next to the day job, and then mostly on the weekends, and often really late hours because I was in Europe and I'm from Germany originally. And then the Americans here, they would be working at a different time. So I would be working late so that we had more overlap with the Americans. And now since I'm here and work in the office and just work really normal hours where I'm starting at 7 or 8 and then work until the afternoon, just feels like a normal job. We're not that crazy little project team anymore that just throws stuff together, but we're a normal company that works just like any other company.
Yeah, and that's one thing, having come into the team a little bit later than a lot of people, I've noticed that Alpha really does kind of respect their employees and wants to make sure everybody's healthy, and it is a really positive place to be, and that's kind of, it's encouraging to see, especially in the game industry where crunch is a problem and known as kind of just quality of life. Nordic, I want to pose the same question to you. Do you have any unique challenges kind of working as, our bug tester abroad, so to speak?
Yeah, only the fact that you sometimes miss information. Like I can obviously since I don't work full time, I come home at like 17:30 my time, and that's when I usually start, unless I do a little bit from the office, but that's obviously text based. So when you wake up, you can have an entire day of communication in Slack of messages. It can be several hundreds, and it's just not very easy to read them all, especially since I have maybe 25 minutes until I get into my day job. And when my day job comes, I need to deal with all that. So you miss a little bit of communication not being on the right, so to speak, developer time zone, because most of them are NA or NA time zone. So that's probably the real only issue, that you can miss stuff like that. So you ask stuff, and if you would have just scrolled up a little bit in the Slack channel, you would have known. But other than that, it's no real problem. It's very efficient. Like they develop and do stuff, and then you wait for builds. And when I come home from my job, then the builds are done, and then I can get testing. So in that sense, it worked very well. But yeah.
Cool. Since we've just released V11 and it's a pretty cool patch, we've released some cool things in it. I was curious, kind of, I'm going to put this to both of you. What are you most proud of in like the V11 patch? What did you work hard on? What are you enjoying most right now in V11?
Well, I think for me it was really performance and playability of the game. I looked at, to be really quite frank, I did not play Alpha 10 because I did not enjoy it. And there were multiple factors to it. One was performance, the other one was gunplay, and some other small factors. And so that for me was the thing to attack for Alpha 11. And we had, I want to mention Christopher here, who was really good in finding a process for investigating the performance work, then with Joe, our lead programmer. And we spent a lot of time investigating and then coming up with a few fixes. And then the same applies to the game design side, of course, where we have Tom Fancy now, who was, I think, on the stream last time, was helping finding solutions there. So I think what we can be most proud of is that whenever we put something out there, we look at what's not working well, and then we're addressing that. And I think we've shown that with Alpha 11. And I think it's very enjoyable playing the game right now.
Nordic, I want to put the same question to you, but I do want to put a spin on it, since you do have, 3,300 hours played, and it's too early for me to do math, apparently.
3,500 now.
Well, but you were quoting yourself and saying that maybe 100 of those were idle, blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
But
around 3,300, yeah.
So same question, but I'm curious if you see a difference from a QA side and the player side, since you're out there in not only public play, but you are involved heavily in tournament play, organized play, those kind of things.
Yeah, a few things. One of the gunplay, but more important gunplay, because that was only like temporary, and I survived about it. Like you just had to learn. But what I really to the end of Alpha 10, especially in 10.2, something messed up that really got FPS down. Like you would be looking at someone have 70, 80 FPS, and then when we're shooting, you drop down to 40. And effectively that fucks up your sensitivity, because it doesn't read a computer screen as much. So I would miss people, and that would make me really angry. So that was the best part about Alpha 11. And then also Alpha 11 added a ton of depth in strategical things, which comes down to tournament play, where we added a bunch of new toys to play with. We had a bunch of new kits. We changed the fact how the Russians got their Obzor, and they got a little bit more like iron sights and are faster ADS than scopes and stuff like that. So they've changed a lot. And then just MGs, I personally, though I never played them, I personally love them because they're actually really dangerous. And now you have to think more. So you can't just, because in version 9 you would say basically, all right, 2 ATs, 2 medics, and then maybe a marksman or something, or GL, and that's it. And that was set in stone. You never change that. Now you can pick your kits for what you need them. If you're on the defensive squad, you'll have 3 MGs, and if you're on the attacking squad, you'll probably not have a single AT because you will have only riflemen, because the grenades and the rifle is worth it. So it added a lot of strategic in that part, punts and that part, and yeah, that really made it for me. The replay ability and the fact that rounds are not as the same anymore. They change more. Yeah.
Yeah, which is kind of worth mentioning that Mother Deer, who Norby mentioned as being kind of responsible for a lot of the optimization, did leak today a little bit about randomized AAS. If you're looking around Reddit, there's some screenshots floating around talking about making a little bit more variation, more complexity. That's coming too. It's going to be kind of cool. But I do want to jump back. What are your biggest struggles in V11? I mean, there's been some bugs, obviously, and we've been hot patching. I'd like to hear what you guys are kind of beating your heads against, if you're willing to talk about that.
Oh yeah, well, I think the main bug out there right now is the self-bandage not working reliably. And of course, the struggle with bugs like that is that they are hard to reproduce. This only happens on full servers. And then you don't know beforehand if it happens. So it's really hard to debug. We can't debug it in editor, where it's really easy. You can just attach to source code and set your breakpoints, see what's going on and where it's failing. We don't have that option right now. We can also attach to a development game client connected to a full server. But it's really hard to debug in a situation like this because it will be unpredictable. We don't know if it's going to fail on the client or on the server. We don't know if it fails when we bandage. We only know afterwards when you finish bandaging. So something like this is really difficult to debug, and that's where we spend a lot of our time on. Often the fix afterwards is relatively quickly found. Most of the time is lost investigating. But yeah, then really finding the right process there is what it comes down to. If we don't find a way to debug this, for example, then we're going to have to carefully put in log messages, probably on the server, that tell us what happens. And then we can reproduce that bug and then look at the log messages and see where it fails. And then we have more information. But of course, those log messages, putting them in will require another patch. So that all ties into the entire release process. Sometimes we need to release patches to find out more about bugs, but usually we release patches to address bugs and when we feel like we have something that's worth putting out.
Nordic, is there anything in the current thing that's really you've been chasing down? Any bugs that have been kind of irking you?
I think we got most of them all finally, but vehicles were a pain. They're still a bit jumpy, and all throughout version 11, people would sit outside vehicles, they would get killed. They would sit inside, but you could kill them by shooting at the Bradley's windows and stuff like that. Vehicles were really a freaking pain this patch, for sure.
I think it was you that also mentioned we did something like 40 plus layer changes in V11. So there's been just tons and tons of stuff.
Yeah, Tom updated all the layers. Obviously, just simple things as the fact that bleed is set per old AAS bleed was set where when you took a flag that would tip you to have more flags than the enemy, that was the bleed flag. So every single layer needed to be updated, every single AS layer. And then we added new toys to them. He changed flag layers and everything like that. And it's just bound to have to be errors. There's no human who will do 40 layers and they're all perfect. So that was also something that I call the great layering of 2018. We even had specific community testers who got a map each to just test: is the repair crate, is the repair station working, is the ammo crate working, is there enough, like, do every team have a logi, can you cap the flag, stuff like that. And they got a ton of bugs. I think I fixed maybe 30-40 before we even went to public testing. And despite that, we had a ton of bugs, and even some made it into the game. That was a big task, but that's just how it is. When you make that many changes to layers, it's just how this is, how it's going to be. So yeah.
Oh yeah, something a lot of people might not know is that you really are instrumental in a lot of testing, including like we did a recent 50 versus 50 playtest. Can you kind of just give us a the high overhead of what it looks like to run a playtest and how that works for Squad?
Yeah, I have pretty much since I joined, since I have a little server farm that stands next to me, and have a very good connection at home. I host my servers at home, and naturally, I am a hardware enthusiast or nerd, so I have a lot of it. And then I've been hosting the servers since I pretty much started, for part because I can judge like how's performance looking. I can constantly monitoring it, and basically, what every day is like, okay, so we start a playtest. Carm decides a time, and he asks. Sometimes he asks if I'm available. Sometimes he announces a playtest, and I have to be available. And you load it with a special version of the game called, in layman terms, developer exe for the game or for the client, which basically enables you to do profiling. And profiling, in very simple terms, is you start the game and then analyze it. It tells you exactly how long each frame is taking, so you can find, like, if you're standing in the smoke and you lose 20 FPS, then the profile will tell you what exactly is taking so long and why is it taking so long. So that you do, and for the 50 player test, we decided to see how close we are to 50 players, especially with the new optimizations in version 11, and because we've done it a few times in the past, and we did it in V9, and then it was really bad. Servers would go down to 4 or 5 tick rate per second. For reference, about 15 tick rate is below that is where vehicles start rubber banding. About at 10, 11, voice starts to cut out, and at like 7 or 6, grenades don't even fly. They land straight at your feet when you throw them. So servers were basically around 15, dropping between 10 to 20, but usually around 13, 14, so not perfect. But clients were really cool. So what QA does is basically we look for game-breaking bugs that we haven't found yet, because we obviously have tested the shit out of the patch before. And we also test performance, because unfortunately you cannot test performance on a non-full server, because the main performance issues are something called replication, which is basically the server and the client just getting data about everything. Is that soldier moving? Is he switching weapon? Stuff like that is called replication, and that is the biggest performance cost. So that's what we need a full server to test that. I believe we have a programmer that's working on some sort of lab environment with bots to somehow simulate this, but it's not that easy. So yeah, that's basically what we do in a playtest.
And Norby, I think you could probably pick up where the playtests leave off. I mean, does that play into your next phase of development, or is that something that you're heavily involved with?
No, the playtesting itself is actually not something I'm involved in at all. I really need the results of the playtest. On an organizational side, that's all on Carm and Nordic and everyone else in QA team really who helps out there. But yeah, the playtests are really absolutely necessary for us, especially on the version of Unreal Engine where we are on right now. Epic Games did something for Fortnite in the most recent version of Unreal Engine. I think it's not even released. It's going to be in 420. But what they can do, and eventually, if we upgrade to 420, we could do, is record an entire playtest, all player movements, everything that happens, and then replay that on the server, creating the same load on the server as was on the playtest. So you could make a code change, make a build, and then run that playtest again, just simulate it without requiring any actual players, which is really cool. But of course, we don't have that ability yet. So for us, those playtests and that community engagement again and again and again, that's really the only way we can get our numbers. Also, the only way we can find issues like that bandaging bug that only happen on full servers.
And yeah, I mean, that has been kind of we have some abilities to kind of simulate lag and stuff, but it has been really key to have the community involved in testing, and the feedback has been really great, and it's been helpful. There's some people trying to submit fixes, and people that come up with reproduction steps are phenomenally useful. Is there anything you can kind of tell us about what you're working on currently? That kind of goes for both of you, Nordic. I know you're probably still looking at a lot of the bugs that we just talked about, but Yeah, like what are you looking forward to for maybe 11.2 in the future? If you can talk about that.
I mean, I have pretty much QA usually has a bit of a downtimes once the hot fixes are out, and then it's a couple of months until we start until the developers finish the features for the next patch. In the meantime, obviously it's hot fixes. I'm tracking the bandage bug. A personal hate of mine is the bug where sometimes for some reason your gun does not reload. You have to reload twice. Also happen in vehicles, or that you can't ADS after stance change or reload, stuff like that. The more annoying bugs is what I try to track, and then I spend time on I recently taken over map bugs, simple map bugs like floating rocks and stuff, because it's actual competent people, aka mappers, shouldn't, in my opinion, spend time on that, because that's time we're not getting any other maps. So I try to get stuff like that done, and yeah, I obviously don't do any actual real developing. So yeah, I have a little bit of a downtime, and I try to do other community stuff. Did we just lose Norby? No, he's there.
He's fading in and out, so I assume he'll come back to us shortly. But
yeah, so I kind of try to focus on that, and more hunt down, maybe less like low profile stuff, but stuff that would be really nice. Like a perfect example is now that we had a community come out and say that, hey, can't you remove bipod debugging from the squad log file, because they have a stats program that basically reads kills and deaths and other things from the squad server log file. And then if you have 4,000 lines of bipod deployed, bipod non-deployed things, that's very annoying to go through. So I try to reach stuff like that. Plus, I've helped Odin out with licensing, the community feedback Discord that I'm basically helping Odin with. So yeah, I do a little bit here and there.
Yeah, you've definitely been helping with the make community or the community feedback roundtables. Something that we've only done a couple of so far, but intend to keep doing. It's a focused, feedback session for explicitly the most recent patch notes or recap, so we can actually get a good sampling of what the community is feeling, get user sentiment, actually hear what you guys are saying, and feed that back into people like Norby and Nordic that are doing the testing and developing.
Yep. So I guess to answer the question from my side, I'm not sure how much we can leak in the stream, but I think one of the things that I'm really excited about that's coming now is the vehicle component damage, where you can damage parts of the vehicle and it affects what the vehicle can do. So that's something that will be really cool for gameplay. I think if you can get a critical hit on a vehicle that immobilizes it or disables its turret, I think that will be really something that changes how you fight vehicles, where before you might not even want to engage the vehicle because you won't do enough damage to kill it right away, but you might then be in a situation where you say, hey, I can not kill this vehicle with a hit right now, but I'll be able to disable it where it's not a threat anymore. So I'm just going to do that. And yeah, I think getting that done will be something that I'll be involved in the next weeks. But on the short term, I think this weekend I'm looking really forward to playing Postscriptum. They're finally doing the big public test, I believe. So I think that's going to be cool. And yeah, I'm also playing a lot of Squad recently.
There has been some confusion about kind of the connection between Postscriptum and Squad. Is it something you can speak on? I mean, it's fairly well known that they are a separate game, but from somebody that is kind of heavily involved in Squad, I'd like to hear what you think of Postscriptum.
Well, Postscriptum obviously uses Squad code base. I think that's what everyone needs to understand. It's using what we call OWI core, which is the base code of Squad that handles a ton of things in the background and everything server, client, connection related, all those things. And based on that, they have built their own game. Periscope Games is its own studio, and they lead their development. We don't talk into what they want to do. They run their own development work, and Postscriptum is the game they want to develop. And what you can play on this next weekend then is what they wanted the game to be, or well, what it is at this stage. Obviously, it's not finished yet. But we are the publisher, so we support them in some aspects, and of course, this public test is something where we support them in a few regards, and otherwise we support them mainly in infrastructure. So the build system, for example, for making builds, that's something that we provide for them. But yeah, it's not really something that is directly tied into Squad. It's just using the base framework.
Yeah, which is really cool. I mean, it is. They get to use the cool technology to build a much more like authentic World War II game because they're able to focus on the models and the art and stuff like that too. So that's been something I have really enjoyed, kind of watching them develop as well. Especially the photogrammetry and the uniforms, that they're really paying attention to some really cool details. But back to Squad. Can you kind of elaborate on what a producer role looks like to you? I mean, it's kind of a nebulous title for somebody that's not involved in the gaming industry.
Yeah, it definitely is. So the way it works in our Squad team right now is that we have a project lead who is Dave or Drav. That's his nickname, and he makes the decisions, talks to everyone, and gets the team together on what's coming next in Squad on a really project planning scale. And then when it comes to managing individual things, and especially managing the releases, that's where I come into play. So deciding what needs to go to the next patch, and then making sure those tasks gets done, and coordinating all that in the office. That's basically what I'm doing. I'm setting priorities and just getting things done. Talking to people. That's my work.
Talking to people, yeah.
Which is a lot more complex than it sounds. You're also kind of instrumental in getting every release out the door. I mean, we see you kind of making sure releases go smoothly. You're often the one that's staying up and making sure they go out at the low population time, so there's this little interruptions, and like there's a lot going on. You're not just talking to people. Nordic, people want to know if you are being held hostage, and they're curious about what you're wearing around your neck.
Around my neck is the ISKT Championship dog tag, and I'm not held hostage. I can show my yeah, that's my glorious hall right there, and there's my Linux machine, and to the right of me is very uninteresting a server, as so many others, and another screen, and my gaming machine. I'm very safe. Thank you for your concerns. And I fucked up my camera placement. Excuse me. Yeah. No.
Yeah, no, those are really cool dog tags. That's something not a lot of people really got to see. It is unfortunate that ISKA did go under. Very cool league at the time. We were happy to be able to provide some of that support for them.
There's other cool leagues coming up, or tournaments and stuff. I've seen many new ones emerge. So I think that also speaks for the Squad community, that there's always development, and I think you can learn from the previous ones and come up with something even better.
Yeah, no, that's just it. We've been seeing leagues evolve. There's SWC, there's Squad Pro League, which I think Big D is heading up. We still have Level Gaming out there. These people are kind of coming up with constantly new events. There are people doing mod events. There's obviously still Squad Ops and stuff out there too. Like these are really cool organizations that we're looking forward to growing with. I mean, it's part of Squad. We really do enjoy seeing you guys play. Organized, and it's
Yeah, infrastructure will always come and go, especially in a game that's early access. Like, if CCFN, I think CCFN is the longest going event now, unless it's Squad Ups. I'm not sure who started earlier. Doesn't matter. They have a great track record, and it's cool to see them keep going. And I hope they keep carrying on. It's really good to see something that was that early to still be alive. And regardless of tournaments, they come and go. People gain and lose dedication. They have IRL stuff that takes over. It's just normal. The same thing with clans. They keep coming and going all the time. In like any video game, I played Counter-Strike and I played Dota before this, and it was the same thing there. And they're much bigger than Squad so far. So yeah.
Yeah, Norby, do you get involved in organized play at all? I know you didn't do much in V11, but how do you spend your time slumming at Squad? What's your favorite role?
My favorite role, that's a very good question. In practice, I mostly play squad lead just because, when a round starts and squads slowly open, and then you kind of like, I would like to play not a squad lead this round, but I should squad lead, and then you just create a squad and you get a bunch of people in, and it's actually really cool. And you play with someone you never played with before, and that's really awesome. So yeah, I think most of the rounds I actually enjoy playing squad lead, and then there are a few rounds where it just doesn't work out, and that's a little bit frustrating. Whenever I'm squad leading, I'm taking success very personal. I think that's for all things I do. So whenever I squad lead and my squad is just not successful in what we're doing, that's frustrating to me. But most of the time, it works out really well. Yeah, so I think that's the way I play squad mostly. In Alpha 11, before 0.1, I played medic quite a bit to learn more about this medic issue. And then, of course, we rewrote the medic code to improve it. And I think overall it's quite a bit better now, except that self-bandage. But yeah, that's the other part of it where I'll just play whatever I need to play to learn more about current issues in the game, whatever gets reported. But I also enjoy playing AT, I think, because you can get those really important hits.
Well, I'm going to pump you for squad leader tips. It's constantly kind of a topic of debate. How do you become a better squad leader in squad?
Well, that's a good question. I think one thing you got to recognize is that everyone has a different kind of squad leading style. I'm a very dynamic and aggressive squad leader. There's constant movement. Sometimes on a large map like Nordic, I like to...
Oh no, we lost Norby.
We lost him.
The secret to being a squad leader is to become a robot, specifically a German robot.
Is he coming back?
Alive the entire moment. So I'm not one who builds big fobs, plays really defensive. So that's just my play style. And then there are squad leaders who like to play very defensive, build up huge fortifications. And that's also a valid play style because that might enable you to have a really, really solid defense. Yeah, I think there's no right or wrong. Everyone has to realize what their own playstyle is and use their own strengths. And then, of course, in terms of how you lead everyone in the squad, that ties into that. And sometimes you have people in the squad that just don't fit your playstyle. So forcing them to do things that they're not good at, of course, is hard to. I don't have the perfect answer there. Maybe Nordic, you can give more input because you play more squad lead than me.
Yeah, I learned from I play squad lead in 99.9% of all the games I play because I don't enjoy a lot of the other roles. It's basically squad lead or medic. But I learned a few thousand hours in that you really need to remember that this is your free time. You're not getting paid for it, and you're not doing anyone else's service. You're there to have fun because you're going to play squad. If you're not having fun, that is a one-way ticket to Burnout City. So playing these matches or playing with people that annoy you, like the ones who they won't listen to you or they will do whatever they want or they like stuff players you don't want in your squad is basically I figured out that it's best to remove them because I would get frustrated and I would shut down the game purely because that just annoyed me. So that is one tip. It might sound harsh, but really make sure you enjoy playing with the people inside because sitting in a 60-minute round with people you don't really want to play with or people that makes you pissed off, which can happen, is not a good idea. Aside from that, I think squad leaders tend to do things harder than it has to be. They like there's no hab because you just lost yours and you need one on the defensive objective before you go overrun and people will like to wants to place the perfect hab or something. Sometimes you just slap down a hab. I'm notorious for last night I placed a hab in the middle of a coken field because we just in a hurry. So making things easy and not taking too much. And a lot of squad leaders also likes to micromanagement players. which you have to in some cases, but generally you should try to just give them an order like, we're pushing this objective, we're on defense, spread out to hold the objective, or we're gonna do this. Like, give them a slight objective, and then focus on yourself and play yourself. Because I see a lot of people that are basically not AFKing, but just sitting still and looking at the map. And some people might enjoy that, but I started enjoying squad a hell of a lot more when I basically realized, all right, I give you an objective, and then I'm just a basic rifleman. Because squad leader, aside from insurgents, have the best actually fighting kits in the game. They have a good rifle. All of the roles now after V11.1 have a scope. They have grenades. They get all the goodies, and they're also extremely good in the front line because you can mark with the 3D menu where you want focus. You can say, all right, there's enemies on the sword marker, and enemies and your friendlies can immediately see that on the compass where to look. So you get the information for first hand by being first in. So you know, okay, shit, there's 8 guys to our left side. There's only 1 guy on our right side. That's something you can see firsthand if you're on the ball and go in there. And yeah, I also play pretty aggressive and pretty fast. Also it comes down to experience. But generally, it's like, try to do the basics. Like, when you first start, if you want to start squad leading, do the basics. Take the defensive objective and play that. Easy peasy. No one wants to play defense. So if you do that, you get it good. Especially if you're new to squad, it's very easy. You take over defense. Then you start, after a while, when you get comfortable squad leading, you start doing the attacking stuff and stuff like that. But generally, start very easy. Slap down a fob somewhere, preferably on defense or attack objective close to it then, or somewhere useful and not very far off, because you don't want to run 800 meters back to the objective because you're going to get picked off. And then you start working from there with experience. And yeah, that's basically it. Just focus on yourself a lot, and don't be too much micromanagement. Just give you guys an objective, and obviously be open to questions and stuff like that. But make sure they listen to you, because basically I usually say, if you want to make your own decisions, you go squad leader. If you want to play with me, you listen to what I say. It doesn't matter if it's absolutely shit. Then you do what the squad leader say, because when it's shit and you get wiped, he's hopefully going to learn. Yeah, that's basically it.
I'm going to flip that on you. And what is your worst squad habit? What do you do that is just terrible for you in squad?
I'm used to playing. Sometimes I play way too aggressive with, if I don't have a full squad of my clanmates, I pull very aggressive. And what's my worst quality? I actually noted this down. Fuck, I can't remember what it was. We talked about it internally in my team. I said that this was my absolute worst quality. Oh yeah, tunnel vision. I can, if I or tunnel vision and emotions. If I play shit, I'm going to be a shit squad leader because I'm going to be mad at myself. And if it's even worse that if we're losing or I'm playing bad, I will get tunnel vision in the sense that I just want to go fucking kill people because I'm getting mad that I'm not hitting my bullets. And sometimes it would be better for me to sit back, take 60 seconds and think about things. But in the heat of the moment, I just keep going and keep going and keep going, and it can usually not work. So that's my absolute worst quality, that I get tunnel vision for myself, especially when I screw up. I don't really care too much about others' mistakes. It's mine that I get more pissed off, because then I only have myself to blame. So yeah, definitely like tunnel vision in that sense.
Norby,
For me,
same
it's
thing.
impatience. I
Sorry?
think for me,
Oh.
it's impatience. I'm just not patient, especially when coordinating with other squads. I'm just a guy who will push his squad in too quickly and ruin the entire planning. Sometimes in squad, to work together as a big team, multiple squads, you have to be patient and wait for the other squads to be ready, even if it means just sit there for 2-3 minutes doing nothing. And that's what I fail at.
I'm horribly bad about running out as a medic and getting killed in the process, but that is a lesson I have not learned since the first Battlefield games, where just seeing somebody sitting there just looks so painful, and I want to go get them, but usually ends up taking a few bullets to the head myself, and that's super helpful to the team. Yeah, if I'm gonna open this up to if you guys were to pick one feature you wanted modded into Squad, what would it be?
Modded into Squad as to something I've seen in mods, or something I would like if I could pick a feature that I would want.
Pie in the sky, something you wouldn't see in the base game that you would absolutely love to have in a mod.
Uh, Good question.
For me, it's the German army I want to see modded.
Is there anything about the German army? I mean, that comes up a lot. The Germans, the French, South African forces are also mentioned a lot. What about the German forces appeals to you for Squad?
Oh, for me, it's just, of course, that I was in the German army, and I think, yeah, having all that equipment to play with in the game would be really awesome.
I think I'm not sure actually. I kind of most of the features that I really want are probably in, but something I would really like to see is maybe like jets that would be true to their, how should we say, like true to their how they actually work. Like because if you look at jets, and I'm not saying they're not coming, and I'm not saying they're coming because that's way above my pay grade.
Oh,
But
right,
if you
we're
look at
explicitly talking about a hopeful mod someday.
yeah. So if you look at jets, you have Eureka. So a fighter jet that does Mach 1 crosses it what in 5-6 seconds, and that's our biggest map, I think. 4 kilometers, just at 5-6 seconds, and so you always got to slow them down or something. But jets that would one day function in a way that you would get absolutely shredded if your jets got air superiority, so your bombers could come in and do the work, stuff like that. I think that would be a really cool thing that could really make the coordinated or combined arms really cool. That would be my biggest thing. But that would require more players, it would require bigger maps, and we need better client computers. So there's what that limit is in.
Yeah, I mean that's also something that has been difficult to achieve, like in Battlefield games, where like they have really awesome jets,
Yeah.
but they so often don't interact with the rest of the game that they may as well be playing something else or just racking
Yeah.
up kills. Like that's fine. Like it's totally awesome. It's a lot of fun. I love flying jets, but yeah, it would be nice to see some kind of more combined arm strategies using that sort of technique. Yeah. So yeah, like, is there an army you'd want to see in Nordic? I know you've had done some service.
Uh, I don't. If I'm gonna be egoistic, I would see like a Nordic Union with Finland, Norway, Sweden, and Denmark. Together we have some cool stuff, some unique stuff. But honestly, the one I would like to play is some kind of African faction. Middle East conflicts have been done a ton, and the U.S. versus Russia thing has been done a ton. But something that I have not seen a lot of games actually handle is African theater, basically. I got in love with when I played Far Cry 2. Absolutely loved it. It was amazing, and ever since then, I've been wanting to fight in that environment. So that's actually my biggest hope, that we get a very well done African faction and maps that comes with it, obviously.
Speaking of maps, I just want to get your opinion on map. Like, do you guys have a favorite map? I know there's some people that are diehard Operation First Light fans. There's a lot of people that are into the Kohat, and we're looking into Kohat expansion. Kokan, there's
Korra is my favorite nowadays, because you can play so smart with vaulting and climbing. That before it was very corridor, so it was one of my least favorite maps because it always played out the same because you could only move in such limited areas. But now you can boost or vault or jump over basically anything, which makes you be able to play extremely smart and do serious flanks and just be in annoying situations. So that makes my Korra is actually my favorite map right now. I would love to see it a bit bigger, but I believe Iron Taxi denied me. But he also said, I'm going to leak a little bit, that he has something that I was going to love in that sense. He didn't give me more than that. But so I'm excited for that. But yeah, definitely Korra. And after that, it's probably Yiho.
I think I just like the variation.
Do you have a favorite setting? I mean, I know we've seen a lot more of Afghanistan recently with maps like Kamdash, but we also have some really great Eastern European and some desert maps. And
Yeah, but I think even Cam Dash in the Afghan scenario, it's quite unique. It plays very different to Cora that Nordic mentioned, or Sumari. So yeah, I think I really like that if I play one round, I know the next round will be quite different, as long as the map rotation is set well.
Are there, I mean, we're ramping up to 1.0. We're going to get there. Are there any major features that we haven't put in that you guys are really looking forward to?
Helicopters?
Helicopters. I don't think helicopters is not the biggest thing for me. I think the biggest thing for me is different game modes and different game modes, tanks, and yeah, I think those are the biggest things. But definitely like game modes would be my biggest thing. TC, I'm excited about. It's gonna be cool to see that since it's exactly new. I think random AES might do tremendous work for pub games, and Insurgency finally working with Insurgents getting more tools to really mess up the conventional factions. Because right now they're a bit of a it becomes a little bit scope fest and Insurgents lose because of per infantry. But I'm really enjoying Invasion of Basra, where you can just be Insurgent, you can just loll around and do IED bikes and whatnot, other fun stuff, and that would be really cool.
Speaking of character, you had dabbled a bit briefly with alongside Virus.exe in some modes and layers, haven't you?
Yeah, we made a game mode both from with the perspective of competitive or organized matches in mind called Destruction, which is loosely based on Battlefield 4 Rush, and Insurgency. So it wasn't originally Virus or mine idea. Don't remember who it was, but it was someone in ISKT who floated the idea. And basically, you still take out for now caches, but they always spawn in the same area, in the same general area, and there's a few random spawns that the attackers then see, and you take them out in phases. So you see a few spawns. When you get close to them, the false spawns disappear, much like a rally point would. When you get close to it, it disappears. So once you get close to the real one, you suddenly see that, okay, here's the real cache, and you take them out. So if you take those two out, you go on to the next phase. And there's a few things like you can't place FOBs in. Excuse me. You can't place FOBs in the next phases, so you can't just prep a fob and then go attack. And once you got the first phase, you can immediately spawn in the second and just phase roll. And the whole thing is basically insurgency and invasion in together, which makes you, and rush then obviously from BF4, which makes you can do these tactical things because you're not rushed. Even if you fail a complete attack, you can shield back and you can reset and you can go much faster. Whereas in AES, if you lose one flag, you have to quickly hurry up to set up infrastructure in your next flags. And if you lost your vehicles, you might not get all your guys out of main base, and you have abandoned trucks, so you lost all your stuff, and then you're screwed because now you guys are gonna get rolled by the enemy team, and that can't happen in those game modes. So I much prefer them. So Invasion is probably my favorite game mode right now, and Destruction is based on that.
Yeah, and having seen some of the upcoming stuff for randomized AS, I'm really excited to kind of see that reinvigorated. And there's been some talk about how it might be useful for tournament mode too, but it's still a little bit early to kind of go into that. Yeah, like it is something that should help reinvigorate playing a lot of AS. We're looking at having more fun. That's especially why Tom Fancy is here. We're coming up on the hour. I just wanted to give you guys an opportunity to kind of talk about, is there anything that you haven't covered at Squad that you really want to talk about? Is there something that you want people to know about what you do on Squad that is not, common knowledge? It's both of you are, I mean, Nordic's a little bit more public face, but Norby, we don't see too much of you. You're a really important part of kind of the behind the scenes life of Squad.
Well, nothing really comes to mind, but I think what I can really say is that everyone on the team plays a really important part, no matter how public facing we are. And of course, Nordic is our main blame goat, and that's an important role. But many others in the team also have important roles, and I don't see it as something that really speaks out to how much you do, whether you're really public facing or not.
Oh, for sure. It's
And-
just, yeah, like I'd like to, we like to acknowledge that there are a lot of people that you don't ever see in Discord or on camera or something that are putting a lot of heart and soul into Squad. And just because we see Nordic looking all beautiful with golden chains here, it doesn't mean that there aren't, a dozen people behind him making everything go. And it really is important to recognize those people. Just, like just because you don't get to play with their guns or something they made, they are making Squad go.
And not everyone is really likes being on camera, so that also is part of it. We have some people who it might be really interesting having them on stream, but they might not really like being there. So that's just the nature of it. Everyone is different there, and yeah.
And the international nature is it's often hard to get time zones lined up too, where you might be in the middle of somebody's nap time.
That too, yes. And I see myself as in a team, I guess mostly as a service provider, and I just try to improve everyone's work environment and allow them to work as best as they can. I think that's mostly where I see myself on the team.
Nordic, is there anything? Go ahead.
Yeah, few things like something that I don't call like I'm very people see me all the time, but I usually call the actual developers the smart people because I don't know. I mean, everything I know about game development I've learned throughout this journey, and something that got surprised is how like easy something can screw up. Like you can have bad builds, so something that worked last build can just be broken in the next one for no apparent reason. Simple, and then it's obviously the simple programming. A semicolon here or there will screw things up. But other than that, I also learned that some people, the most going meme in gaming, I think, is that devs don't play their own game. I've seen it in Counter-Strike, I've seen it in Dota, and I've seen it here. And something that people don't realize is the fact that, yeah, there are developers that don't play the game, because I met a guy in Canada who I had a lot of fun with, who didn't play a lot of Squad because his job was to paint tanks or make tanks. And that's just, some people just have that as a job. I'm a system administrator, and I don't, my colleague doesn't play with computers at all at home, stuff like that. He doesn't enjoy it. He buys a Mac because it's easy, and despite that, he's a educated Windows specialist. So some people need to realize that for some people this is a job. But the key people play the game more than people think. And then a couple of, like, I get that people are very frustrated with certain bugs. How do you leave the bandage bug in, or why are vehicles having Parkinson's, as my teammate and me calls it, and stuff like that. You just got to realize that at some point everything does not get found. You can test it, tons of stuff, and it doesn't get found. Version 7 is a perfect example of this. This is before I was QA. People say that the OWI left a version that was screwed and then went to Germany for 2 weeks. But the fact is, I was part of version 7 testing as none other than a regular scrub, and there wasn't any crashes at all. And then suddenly it gets released, and everyone's crashing for weeks. So stuff like that can break, and you got to have a little bit more patience to realize that stuff gets broken, and and it's not that easy to fix it just because you know when it happens, because you need to have actual reproduction steps for bugs to fix them. So a little bit understanding there for people would be kind of cool. And yeah, I think that's basically it.
Yeah, and just I'm going to round that out with a PSA that if you have recently updated Windows, your microphone and sound settings might have been removed from their default. So if your microphones are not working in Unreal or OBS, for example, reset your defaults in Windows and you should be back to going.
And if you want to disable Windows Update, PM me on Discord and I'll tell you how. I've had long, very nice wars against Windows Update. I'm currently in the lead. So yeah.
Unfortunately, Windows updates are something that we have to consider as active development risk, because it might just sometimes break stuff where it puts out a developer for a day or two where they can't work because of a Windows update. So yeah, it's a quite unfortunate situation.
Alrighty, so we're right at about the hour. I want to thank you guys for joining us today, and I also want to give a quick shout out to Scott Tobin, who did a live composers play yesterday and actually joined some of the devs playing Squad as on 2 keyboards. He was playing live music from PR and Squad as he was, actually playing the game with Lourdes and some of the other folks. So you can check that out. There's a link in the announcements channel. There's a link on our Facebook and Twitter pages. So yeah, you find it. It was really cool. Scott is the person who has done all the wonderful music for Squad and Postscriptum. He's done a lot of that, some orchestral scoring, so he is very talented and worth checking out. We'll be doing another one of these Squad Chats again in a couple weeks. Stay tuned for that information. And just, a big thank you today for Norby and Nordic joining us today to kind of give us some insight into what the quality assurance process looks like, what they do on Squad, and some of the challenges kind of behind making an independent game. Like, it's not easy, and we really appreciate that insight, guys.
Yep, I just had to answer the most important questions ever. What's in my non-fridge? It's actually cracker bread, my friends. Sweden's biggest treasure. This is the secret I have not been showing you.
Oh, I thought you were Sweden's biggest treasure.
Elitist. Oh, now we're gonna go candy. I'm gonna end with a sweet. Just made this childproof. Cracker bread, my friends.
All right, everybody. We will see you next time.
Yep. I want to give a big shout out to Scott as well. Love you, man. Awesome music. And thanks for doing this interview, Craig. And yeah, see you another time.